to the fourth day of our proceedings. And before we start the hearings, may I ask the religious leaders to lead us in the prayers, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين إهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الله الذي جعل لكم الأرض قرارا والسماء بناء وصوركم فأحسن صوركم ورزقكم من الطيبات ذلكم الله ربكم فتبارك الله رب العالمين هو الحي لا إله إلا هو وحده مخلصين له الدين الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you very much, Bishop.
Great God of nation, our defender and our protector, we continue, TRRC, continue to submit all proceedings under your guidance and direction. We pray that everything will augur well for the good of the Gambian nation. As we continue, Lord, we ask that everything will move on smoothly to your honor and to your glory. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you all very much. Indeed, before I call on council to take us through the program for the day, may I plead with you all again that you put your phones off or put them on silence as we proceed with our hearings. Council, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. We are ready to call our next witness, and Ms. Horeja Balagay would lead today's proceedings.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Mr. Witness. May I ask you to please stand up and take the oath? The usher will assist you with that.
I, Sheriff Gomez.
I, Sheriff Gomez, Sheriff ML Gomez,
Swear that I'll speak the truth,
swear that I'll speak the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Mr. Gomez, can I ask you to switch off your microphone? Good morning to you, sir. As you know, my name is Horeja Balagay, and I will be leading your questioning on behalf of the commissioners. Just a few housekeeping matters before we begin. There's interpretation, simultaneous interpretation into the local languages. Therefore, I ask that whenever I switch on my microphone, you switch yours off, and I'll do the same when you're speaking. Additionally, if you can just leave a few seconds after I speak so that you can also speak, and the interpretation will flow accordingly. This morning, I intend to start with a few background questions. So I would like to really thank you for making yourself available to the Commission. I will start by asking you some background information about your career. Then after that, we will discuss some of the events surrounding the 1994 coup d'etat. Then we will discuss what, if anything, happened to you, as well as information regarding human rights violations and abuses during that period. And then we will conclude by just hearing from you about your views as a victim, and we'll touch on issues of institutional reform. Yeah? So can you please state your full name?
My name is Sheriff M.L. Gomez.
What is your date of birth?
8 May 1960.
Where do you live?
I live at Bakau, Newtown.
Where did you attend primary and secondary school, Mr. Gomez?
My primary school started at Bakau, completed in Mohammedan in Banjul. Secondary school at Crab Island Secondary School, then Nusrat High School.
After you finished secondary school, what did you do next?
I took up employment at a construction company on the Afro-Atlantic, and I worked on the Mustafa Njai as site constructor, site foreman.
What year did you start working there?
I think it was 1982.
And how long did you stay in that position?
I stayed there till 83. I joined the Gambia Civil Aviation.
And what did you do at the Gambia Civil Aviation?
I was recruited as communications, and I was at the communications room at the airport, aviation, at the tower.
And how long did you spend with the civil aviation?
I was there from 1983 to 86, 87 when I decided to join the Gambia National Army.
Do you recall when exactly you joined the Gambia National Army?
Yes, I joined the Gambia National Army in January 1987 as intake number 7.
What motivated you to join the Army?
Well, as a young man at the time, I was, having done about 3 years at communications, it became very boring for me. And sitting up there at the control tower, you keep seeing soldiers coming in, running on the exercises. And I thought, I gave it some reflection. Then I had a lot of friends, particularly Abdullah Conte, who was my friend also, and he was in the army. So I got motivation from all this. And I thought this is a sterling service for country. And I decided between 1996-97, when I ultimately joined, that this is what I wanted to do, that I wanted to leave everything and join the service for my country.
So you joined in January 1987, is that correct?
That is correct.
And when you joined, what was your rank?
I joined as a soldier, ordinary soldier. I was recruited. I went through recruitment, joined as an ordinary soldier, and went through the rigors of recruitment training, and became a soldier, ordinary soldier in the Gambia National Army.
Let's talk about your career progression within the military. From an ordinary soldier, can you take us through your progression within the Army up until 1994?
Yes, as an ordinary soldier, infantry soldier, I became Lance Corporal. That means you have 1 stripe on your arm. And then through communications, I was basically in signals. And then between 1987 to 88, I was promoted to I got my cadet officership and became a cadet officer in September 1988. And then I was prepared for my officer training, which I departed this country in October 1988 for Pakistan Military Academy. Excuse me.
How much time did you spend in Pakistan doing this training?
The training at officer training at Pakistan Military Academy was 2 years, and we were two in number, myself and Kendeke J. We were the first couple who left the Gambia for JNA to start training at Pakistan Military Academy. So it was 2 years.
Was it normal to have a training that long, 2 years? Was it different from the other types of trainings within the military at the time?
Yes, this was what you may consider new in the excuse me, in the Gambian National Army, because until that time, the training that most Gambian officers go will be at Fort Benning in the United States, and that is SOT training course. There were trainings also in Pakistan, but this is at the officer training school, which is also a SOT training course. Excuse me. Now, SOT training courses are designed in armies to cater for a rapid production of army officers. This is necessitated usually when armies have this need because of probably continuous wars, so you need to produce your officers quickly, and then you have this stream. But then in the army, like in in US, you have West Point, it's a longer period. In the UK, you have Sanders, it's a longer period than these courses. And so also is Pakistan Military Academy with Thursday training for 2 years.
Can I ask you to switch off your mic? Sorry.
Like that.
You'll get used to it as time goes on. After 2 years in Pakistan doing military training, what happened next?
In 90, we returned with both a military commission officer certificate, as well as a BA degree. And this is also a first time in the Gambia Army for officers to be accorded this. Of course, there are other trainings that I went in at Pakistan. I also did my parachute training. I was a parachutist and a gliding trained glider also.
What was your BA degree in?
In humanities.
Which specialization in the humanities?
History.
So when you returned back to the Gambia, did your rank change?
No, when I returned in the Gambia, I became a second lieutenant. And then within 2 weeks, I was deployed to Liberia on the ECOMOG.
How much time did you spend in Liberia?
Sorry about the mic. I spent, the tour of duty was 6 months, because I went in to join the first, that was the first batch of ECOMOG, Gambian contingent ECOMOG. And I went to replace, I think it was Captain Ann, who was being recalled to go on training. So I went to take over from Captain Ann, and I did a tour of duty for 6 months, 7 months.
You stated that you started in the signals unit. Did you remain in that unit, or did you have other responsibilities?
No, I indicated that I joined the Army as an infantry officer. And in that cadre, signals is part of it. So signal is just one unit within an infantry setup, which I did. But I am a trained infantry officer, a field officer, what you may call.
Did you change unit after that? Or did you remain as an infantry officer?
Yes, I mean, changing units the profession will remain. You will remain an infantry officer, but units in terms of, I became a platoon commander, yes. Later I became a company commander. These are units, but they are still within an infantry corps.
That's what I was getting at. Thank you. So as a member of the infantry unit, where were you stationed?
When I returned from Ecomog, I became the battalion training officer at Yundum Barracks, 1 Infantry Battalion.
And how long did you remain a training officer?
I remained a training officer for quite a period, because after Yundum, at this time there was recruit intake 16, and there were issues that we were having in the training, and I had to be shipped off to Farafenye, where the training school was, to join the training cadre, to train and pass out this recruit intake 16, which I did, and I went to Farafenye and joined Captain Johnson, Jaju, Lieutenant Jaju, and Lieutenant Kendeka J.
Do you recall when you went to Farafenye?
It's between this period. Dates are getting blurred now, but it's between 91, 92.
After that, where did you go next?
After that, what happened was we had an incident, an accident, which involved Captain Johnson, Lieutenant J, the 3 officers. I was the only one remaining in Farafenye. They were coming back on a weekend off, and they had an accident. Unfortunately, Lieutenant Jaju lost his life, and then the others sustained serious injuries. And I had to stay back and hold the fort. So I stayed there for quite a while, I think until the Nigerian contingent, the NATAC, came to take over.
Did you stay in Farafenye as a training officer, or did your role change during that time?
My role subsequently changed, and then when the Nigerians came, I became the administrative officer attached to the Nigerian CO, commanding officer. It was, I think, Colonel Odinsi.
When did the Nigerians come to the Gambia to take over?
Like I indicated, I occasionally get blurred on the dates, but it's between this period, because I recall in 1992, later in 1992, I was recalled back to Yundum Barracks, where I became the adjutant of the barracks.
You mentioned that you also had training in the U.S. When was that training?
Yes, this was later end of 1990, December 1991 towards 1992. I had to go to the U.S. with Lieutenant Omar Bunbai to do a motor leaders course, that is operating mortar. And then we did instructor training as well as a battalion motor officer. So I did 3 courses in the US, in Fort Benning and Fort Knox, Kentucky.
So that training in the US was before you became an adjutant, is that correct?
Yes, it was before I became the adjutant.
How long did you remain an adjutant?
From 1992 to 1994 when the coup happened.
What were your responsibilities as an adjutant?
As an adjutant, your duties are on 2 primary roles. One is about administration, which involves taking the daily admin routines of the barracks, of the battalion. And then it also involves, of course, within that admin role, discipline, because as an adjutant, you're responsible for discipline in the barracks, particularly as it relates to the junior officers, subaltern officers, from lieutenant downwards. And then you're also responsible for all ceremonies that involves the barracks, the battalion.
So just so we better understand the position, within the military hierarchy and structure, where would you place an adjutant?
An adjutant, in a company setup, you will see probably he's the CEO of the barracks, and then you have the commanding officer as the executive chairman. That's if that will help at all.
It does. I want to address the issue of the structure of the Army when you joined. Can you give us an idea of the command structure at the time?
Prior to the Nigerians coming, I mean, with the British Army training team, but we had still 1 infantry battalion as a setup. And then it was when the Nigerians came that we started the idea of having a 2nd battalion at Farafenye. Within the battalion setup, you have the commanding officer, and then in a battalion you have, in some structures, you have 3 companies, each company with a company commander, and 3 platoons, each headed by platoon commanders. So this is the hierarchy. And within this, you have at the top, at the battalion HQ, where you have the company commander, the adjutant as the admin officer, and then you have the deputy commanding officer within that structure, and then below, that's where you now have all the companies headed by company commanders and platoon commanders, and then you have the men and their sections.
So when you joined the military, who was the overall commander at the time?
When I joined, it was under Colonel Ndaunjai.
How long did Colonel Ndaunjai remain overall commander?
There was a point when he was retired, and then I think posted out as ambassador. I can't remember dates now, but it was after him briefly. I think it was Mabajo. And then after that, that's when the Nigerians came.
And you don't recall when Mabajo became the commander, do you?
Not the dates, no.
The year, perhaps?
I am not sure, because I think it was between the period that I left for studies, because I recall when I came back, it was Maba who was the officer in charge, Maba Job.
So you joined the Army in 1987.
Yes, please.
When was the Army created? Do you know?
I think it was in 84. I'm not sure anymore, but I think it was in 84.
And do you know why the Army was created?
I think it was as an, after the 81 rebellion here in the country, and then the coming into play of the Senegalese, the Confederation, and I think these were some of the requirements that we thought were necessary to have a professional army, and I think it was after this that the army, this was some of the reasons why the army were created, in my own opinion.
Just for our purposes, what is the name what was the name of the Gambia National Army at the time?
Gambia National Army. Yeah.
And do you know if there was any existing force prior to its creation in 1984?
Yes, we had the field force. Prior to that, we had also the other sister agencies, services, the gendarmerie, the police, and all the others. But I think the field force morphed because some of the officers were recruited directly from the field force to start the force core batch of the Gambia National Army.
So considering your role as an adjutant, which meant you had administrative responsibilities, were there any administrative challenges at the time prior to 1994?
No, nothing out of the ordinary of a barracks of that size, that time in the history of the Army, and at that time point where we were still within the transition of becoming a professional army, because I think that is one of the critical roles the Nigerian contingent contributed to the history of the Gambia National Army. It was for the first time that the Gambia National Army was structured professionally.
So let's talk about that structure. From the time that you joined to when the Nigerians came in, how did the structure of the army change?
I think it was one where we were still within this silo of a battalion being the target, but then you have a situation where the battalion keep increasing, and then it still become that very tight pyramid. And then it was only when the Nigerians came that this structure was delineated. You have the staff duty role, and then you have the field command role, which is the battalion, the fighting force, and the administrative force, which is the staff duty role, the headquarters, and all these things delineated. And I think that was a positive step for the Gambia National Army.
So what was the size of the battalion at that time?
I'm not sure of the numbers again as of now, but I'm not sure about the numbers anymore.
So when the Nigerians came in, they made certain structural changes. What was the reaction of the soldiers to those changes that were implemented?
Well, the changes, like I said, came in structuring the army in one infantry battalion, 3 companies, inputting all the officers. Of course, the CEO was the Nigerian. One infantry battalion was Odu. He was my CEO. I was adjutant under him. And then you have company commanders. Under the company commanders, you have the platoon leaders. In Farafenye battalion was also the same. Farafenni was all up to this time almost like a skeleton. It was a battalion, a sort of battalion. It was not a full battalion because still those structures are still being developed with recruiting men for Farafenni. But these structures were like that, and then you have the army headquarters created with the staff complement that it requires. And then one other thing that they solved, which was critical again, was the issue of seniority, because that was a problem. At the time, you will recall, like I said earlier, I went to do an officer training course that took 2 years. In this period, you have so many of my juniors who went and came back to places like Fort Benning, short courses, and came back, and we are already commissioned before I returned. And so many other complexities, but this was resolved by the Nigerians. It was also for the first time that we have a military wing, a military police wing, which is a complement, necessary complement for the army. It was also the first time we have the TACOS, terms and conditions. So all those doctrines which were necessary were never there before. It was with the advent of the Nigerians that these things were created.
So the Nigerians came in and conducted a number of changes within the army. You said the overall army was led by a Nigerian. Did Gambians hold command positions at the time?
Yes, Gambians hold command position because in the battalions, you have the commanding officer, the Nigerians, but the company commanders are Gambians. The platoon commanders are Gambians. Below platoon level, which is also command positions because you have section commanders, they're Gambians. So yes, Gambians had command positions.
Were there senior Gambian officers at the time prior to the Nigerians coming in?
Yes, there were. There were people like Mabajo, people like Chris Davis. There were so many other captains and majors. But then what these reforms, restructuring did also, was that most of these officers had to fill so many other various positions. For the first time, not only field offices to be filled, but field offices had to be filled, as well as staff duty officers. Meaning that many officers would also be at the headquarters in Banjo, doing staff duty offices.
So what was the role of commanders who were in, senior military officials who were in high positions such as Mabajo? What happened to them after?
Maba, I'm not sure later whether he was retired or because I think there was an issue between Maba, Omar Faye, things like that. I'm not too clear anymore. But I think there was some sifting. This is all I can recall at the time. This is all I can recall at the time. I'm not sure anymore.
So you said Gambians were in charge of company commanders as well as platoon commanders. Yes. So was a company commander the highest position that Gambians held at the time?
In field positions, yes, because the battalion commanders were Nigerians. But on staff duties, you have senior officers who were also there. And may I just add, these are complements in the army. These are one and the same. And an army structure, take these two to make a real army structure.
Indeed, but considering that the highest positions for field positions were company commanders, how did the soldiers react to that kind of restructuring?
I don't think there was any untoward reaction to this because this was necessary. Your position or your appointment depends on your rank. The rank you have will determine where you are. And I think this was what was done.
So just for our understanding, do staff duties include command positions?
No, as a staff officer, you don't have command. When the only time you have command is when you have troops under you.
So around that time, and we're talking about 93, 94, was there any discontentment within the rank and file of the Army?
Well, I know this issue of discontentment keeps coming and reappearing all the time based on various people and their explanation. As a trained officer and one who started my journey, like many of the other officers too, through the ranks, complaints within it's almost synchronous with service. Junior, well, soldiers will always complain. Will always complain. If that was what discontent means, yes, there was discontent because people will complain. There is nothing you will do when soldiers will not complain.
So what kinds of issues did soldiers complain about?
I'm not sure whether these were really of any serious issues at all. In my perspective, I don't think so at all.
So as the adjutant, are you saying that you didn't receive any serious complaints from the soldiers at the time? Is that correct?
No, I did not. I did not. The complaint, of course, well, one infamous one came with Yaya Jammeh talking about issues of food. And I had to reprimand him for that, for talking about the food be not good enough for dogs. And as a military officer at the time, when you have to utter a statement like that, you need to show it. And as a duty officer, it was your job to show that this is the state of the food and this was not good enough. But to make flippant, statement like that, that called for reprimand, and I did.
And what was his reaction to that?
Well, as usual, he understood what I said, and he understood that my reprimand to him was that if he did it again, I'll march him up to the commanding officer. And we resolved that. It never happened again.
We'll come back to the issue of Yaya Jammeh, but I just wanted to ask a question regarding the situation at the time, including while the Nigerians were around. We understand that there are complaints about Nigerians taking command positions. Also complaints about the lack of facilities, complaints about the pay. Were these things that you were aware of?
No, I was not aware of these complaints. For me, Nigerians coming in was beyond soldiers to decide. That was not their role, it's not their function. It was the function of the civil authority that was there at the time. That was their job. If they feel it fit to do that, that was good. Because the British were here, they didn't have command role. But we all know the influence that they held at the time. The advices that they give, the control that they had, that was there. But yes, for me, Nigerians coming in, I think was a blessing in disguise for the army.
So speaking of the civilian authorities at the time, were you aware of any kinds of discontentment regarding corruption in relation to the PPP, that there were allegations of corruption?
Well, as a trained military officer, it was not my business to understand what corruption PPP government was doing. My job was a trained soldier. I was meant to serve my country in my capacity as a soldier. Corruption, I don't understand unless a specific issue was brought out, but I don't think it's apart from the ordinary for any government. that happened, be it the First Republic or the Second Republic.
But you'll agree that if soldiers had concerns in relation to allegations of corruption, that could create a problem within the army.
Well, I guess then no civil government should create an army, because there is always issues of corruption. But I don't think it's the business of the army to take that to influence what work you do or don't do.
That's really not my point. My point is to understand the soldiers at the time and their feelings and their contentment at the time, because I do believe that has an impact. So did you hear any information about soldiers feeling discontent in relation to allegations of corruption regarding the civilian rule?
No, I think I've dealt with that. I've answered that I don't hear anything like that. I did not.
So, as an adjutant, would you consider that to be a position of privilege compared to the rank and file?
I don't understand the question at all.
Let me rephrase that. As an adjutant, are you in a better position in terms of benefits and salaries and the like compared to a rank and file?
Well, I mean, if you want to ask me whether a CEO in a company is paid better than ordinary staff, I mean, the answer is obvious. But that's not the point. I did not get, or there is no remunerative benefit as an adjutant. Where you were paid was your rank, what rank you held, and what's the salary scale. That is the difference.
What I'm trying to get at is, in your position, you may not have been aware of the feelings of soldiers at the bottom, because at the end of the day, we are asking questions based on the type of evidence and information we receive. So I'm trying to understand, in your position as an adjutant, whether you would have been as well informed about the sentiments further down the chain.
Yes, on two counts. One, I was, before being an adjutant, one, a soldier, two, a platoon commander, a company commander, so I had rapport with soldiers. Two, as an adjutant, and in a military setup, you have a chain of command. That's why the men are grouped in platoons and in sections, and they have platoon commanders. The chain of command dictates and demands that every day you are in touch with your men, and this information needs to be filtered up. That is the command and information flow in an army. So this idea of discontent or disconnect doesn't exist, because it is the responsibility of every command at any level to filter this information up and down. So this idea of disconnect is not there at all.
I understand your opinion. Was there any mechanism in place, apart from information flowing through the chain of command? Was there a mechanism that would allow you to assess and gauge the sentiments of the soldiers? Was there some kind of survey, for instance, that was conducted within the army at the time?
Well, if you say survey, I don't understand, because survey is not a military, well, at least at our level, is not a military practice. But one of the most effective forms of gauging this is the fact that every day all troops will muster, all their commanders will be there to understand what they are doing, where they are, what is affecting them, and then bring this up. This, I think, is the most effective, and it happens every day on a daily basis.
So is it your suggestion that all was well in the army between 93 and 94? Is that correct?
No. I didn't say that. I am not saying, what I'm saying is, I don't think there was anything out of the ordinary to warrant this so-called discontent.
Well, let's come to the challenges or issues within the Army around that time. In your opinion, what were some of the issues at the time or challenges that you faced?
Well, the Gambia National Army was in transition. We didn't have so many things that were required, be it all the wherewithals of training, be it the equipments, be it the full-fledged structures that keep an army ecosystem well-groomed, well-oiled. There were so many things that were missing. Indeed, there were so many things that were missing. No, there was not, it was not everything that was available, no.
So let's talk about military intelligence, for instance. Did the Army have its own military intelligence unit?
Yes, the battalion had one at the time.
Can you tell us about the unit? Who led the unit and how did it function?
Well, a battalion intelligence unit concentrates on the battalion and what it picks up, what it understood. And the officer responsible, I think, was either Biran Sen or Cherno Jallo. I'm not sure between these two, but these were the people responsible. And they report directly to, they were obligated to report directly to the commanding officer, the CEO. And I think as far as the structure is concerned, from the CEO and with the CEO, all other officers get information as to what is happening or what is not happening.
Do you recall the ranks of Biran Sen and Cher?
Yes, I think they were lieutenants. I'm not sure whether, but I think they were below me or just lieutenants or second lieutenant, around that level.
Did the Army receive intelligence or collaborate with other intelligence units in other agencies at the time?
Well, that's what is supposed to exchange of information and intelligence. But then you will understand that these are at a different level. At a battalion level, all you do is gather this information, process to your headquarters. It is the headquarters now, as an army, as a service setup, that exchange information between them and other sister agencies, sister services.
And which sister services are we referring to?
Well,
your microphone, please.
The NSS at the time, the other security services, the police, etc.
Are you aware if regular briefings or exchange of information actually took place?
I wouldn't be sure about that. At my level, at the battalion, no, I would not be sure about that.
What about the issue of military police? Did the Army have a military police?
Yes, we had one at the time, because I think immediately after the disbandment of the gendarmerie, that we had some of them coming in as the military police. Others went to the police to serve.
And around 1993, 1994, who was in charge of the military police?
I think it was Yaya Jammeh and Sadibu Haidara. No, or Sadibu Haidara was a platoon commander also, but I know it was Yaya Jammeh.
And what was Yaya Jammeh's rank at the time?
A lieutenant, 2 stars.
In relation to your role as an adjutant, do you know who was in charge of the armory at the barracks?
The armory, this is a battalion headquarters duty. I, as an adjutant, am responsible to carry those keys. It was my responsibility. Of course, who handles the day-to-day admin of the armory itself, these are left to the other ranks to be in charge. They are specialist roles that they do. But it means every day they will come in the morning and get the keys from me to go and start their work. Every day also, at the end of the day, they will bring back the key to me to keep for safekeeping.
And just to ensure that it's clear for the record, which barracks are we referring to?
1 Infantry Battalion at Yundum Barracks.
So still focusing on the period 93-94, what types of weapons did the Army have at the time?
The usual battalion Army stuff, rocket launchers, RPGs, LMGs, machine guns, AK-47s, etc. I know at that time too, we started receiving some shipments of hardware support from China, and we had so many of these, at the time. But these are complements of a fighting force, a battalion complements, Army complements. And then these were shared between us and the Gambian Navy at the time. That was a boarding service that started. Of course, at the time it was called the Marine.
Just to clarify it for the record, when you say RPG, what are you referring to? Sorry, can I ask you to repeat that in the microphone?
Rocket propelled grenades, RPGs.
Thank you for that. The weapons that you talked about that a battalion would normally have, would you describe these as heavy weapons?
Well, I'm not sure whether it's defined that way militarily. There are battalions usually have what is known as lightweight. Heavy weapons will range from light and medium, you could call. Some heavy weapons, because this will be the complements of this thing. I know these things are coming from sister services who don't have this table of equipment usually with them. When you see an army having weapons like this and you're having a Kalashnikov, your intuition is to target as heavy weapons, because that's not what you have. But it is not beyond the TOE, table of equipment, of an army, of a battalion.
So to make sure I understand this correctly, so the Army and the Marine unit at the time had these kinds of weapons, but no other force had them. Is that right?
I won't say that because I don't know what other services have, but I know the Army and the Marine had these type of weapons.
So I want to focus a lot more on 1994 itself. Prior to the coup occurring at the time, were you aware of any information to indicate that a coup was in the making?
Yes, rumors of coups. We keep getting that as usual, to an extent that it became a situation of, false alarm all the time. And to an extent that, when these things come, you tend to be dismissive of them. This is what happened. And at that particular moment, between that very period of July 22nd, there were a lot of rumors about this against the army.
Before I focus on the rumors in July 1994, the rumors that you would hear previously, prior to that period, what type of information was coming about? Who were those rumors leveled against?
The rumors usually come from the National Security Service, NSS, against the army. The army is doing this. The army is about to do this. The army is about to do this, which we know is not true.
Who was the head of the NSS at the time?
I think it was Keba Sise, the late Keba Sise.
So let's focus on July 1994, and there were rumors of coup at that time. You said that you were dismissive of them because the army had grown accustomed to hearing rumors leveled against it.
That is correct.
So when did you first hear about rumors of a coup in July?
I think it was, it got intensified the week leading to July 22nd week. And then, of course, within this period also, we started, preparing for July 21st, because it was the arrival of the returning of the president. And then, ceremonial preparations, parades, and etc. This was the period that we heard this.
So when you heard of rumors of coups and they intensified in that period, were any measures taken to address those rumors?
Yes, I think there were measures taken. These were looked at. These were questions were going up and down, but it didn't amount to anything because there was this this notion that it's just going to be another false alarm.
So I want to make sure we're precise about this. In your role as adjutant, were you briefed about any rumors of coups? Did you attend any kind of intelligence briefing?
No.
And also, within your role as an adjutant, are you aware of any specific measures that were taken in relation to these rumors?
No, there were none.
So the rumors were, you dismissed the rumors at the time. What happened next?
Again, I was speaking from my personal level, and what happened next, like I said, we started preparing for July 21st when the president was to return. Within this period also, the troops were also started to get organized for the training with the American Marines who were in place to conduct training on July 22nd. So these were what we were engaged in.
So you were busy with July 21st, the return of the president. Can you take us through what you were doing that day? What was your responsibility in relation to that?
Well, the build-up to that was the training, the rehearsals for the parade, getting the troops ready, getting the troops organized, getting the troops kitted properly. This was the build-up to the day. On 21st, there was these issues now, hot rumors on the coup, on the issues of the coup, and I think at that day, I got to learn that one soldier called Modou Jammeh was helping the NSS to get to the bottom of this. But for me, of course, at that time, the primary concern that I had was that the troops were ready to go to the airport and do their ceremonial duties. I guess, of course, the idea was that other people are responsible to follow up on this issue of rumors of coup.
You mentioned Mamadou Fall Jammeh. Which service did he belong to?
He was at the MT, I think it's called the mechanical wing, the motor pool, or the engineering corps, Mamadou Fall Jammeh.
And you said he was assisting the NSS in relation to the rumors that you heard, is that correct?
Yes, this is what I was informed. This is what I had.
Do you know if anything happened in relation to Mamadou Fall Jammeh after that?
No, I don't know.
So we're still on the day that the president is arriving. You're busy with the parades, preparing for his arrival. Did you go to the airport?
Yes, as an adjutant, I went to the airport.
Can you tell us what happened at the airport?
Prior to going to the airport, because of these issues of the rumors, I told the Nigerians, the commander thought it would be prudent for him or for the men to be searched at the barracks first. And I thought that was serving the purpose that we are confident, or we should be confident, that there is no attempt at any time from this side. So the troops were searched. Of course, these are drills that you do. The weapons are searched, and everybody was also searched, whether there was any ammunition or not on anybody before going to the airport.
Were the soldiers told why they were being searched at the time?
Yes, they were informed that there are rumors going on, that there was this situation, and that is why we're doing this, to prove that we have nothing to hide, to prove that we are clean. And then if we go to the airport, that should be done, again, so that everybody knows that there is nothing untowards. They were told.
So who conducted the search? You mentioned the Nigerians, is that correct?
Yes, the parade commanders and everybody was there.
So after the soldiers were searched, you mentioned that they were told that a similar thing would occur at the airport. Did it in fact occur?
Yes, when we went to the airport, we did the same was done. You cock rifles to show it's clean, check the magazines, and that was done.
Do you recall where that was done?
When you're doing a guard of honor at the parade ground, at the airport, that is where exactly it was done, and that's where it should be done. When the troops are already paraded, then you do that so that nobody else move outside the parade.
And was that visible to other persons who were present, meaning the public?
Yes, I think it was designed specifically for that, because if you are content that these are rumors, that there is nothing untowards to it, you have conducted one at the barracks to prove this. When you're doing it at the airport, you're trying to show anybody who was there, anybody who was peddling these rumors, that this is not the case. This is where we are, and this is us with our rifles cocked, inspected, that is they're clean and there's nothing to it.
Which groups were searched at the airport?
I don't understand what you mean when you say groups.
You mentioned that the army was searched at the barracks. When you got to the airport, were there other groups present, any other forces present, apart from the army?
The main troops that goes to the airport are the force that is doing the ceremonies. Of course, you have you have the military police. These are individual. These are not groups of troops. These are individual, 1, 2, few of them, because of the dignitaries they are around. Yes.
So at the time you said well, let me rephrase that. So these groups were searched, as you say, to show the public that there was nothing, that they were clean. What happened next?
Well, I think the military police, because of their sidearms, these were also taken from them. I think it was either the rounds were taken away or the weapons were taken away from them. But I think that was also done with the military police. So that it means that all the troops that came to the airport, either those that are responsible for the parade or the military police that were accompanying the troops, were all clean. That was the intention.
So the troops were clean and the military police were disarmed, is that correct?
I'm not sure whether we can, because disarmament is, okay, that's what you could say, yeah.
And do you know how the public reacted to this? How was this perceived?
No, I don't know.
So after all of that, did the president in fact arrive?
Yes, the usual ceremony was conducted and he left. And we also got back to the barracks.
So do you believe, at the time you said that you dismissed the coup rumors, did you believe that a coup was possible at that time?
No, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it was possible at all.
Why?
I guess, like I said, I just didn't see it. I just didn't see it at all. I don't think that was the temperament of the army. I thought I had believed in this army as a disciplined force. I had believed in this army that was not how we were trained at all. No, I did not just see it coming. No.
Still focusing on the 21st, the day of President Jawara's arrival, did anything unusual happen that day?
Well, apart from, to me, as a trained officer, as an adjutant, this element that we added, this eye searching, and this is unusual because we don't normally do this at all. For me, that is the only thing that was unusual.
After the president arrived and the parade ended, what did you do next?
Well, of course, the build-up and the parade, one is so tired, we had to leave. And then leaving, I was to be driven to my home in Bakau. And I took along some officers, and one of them was Yaya Jammeh, particularly Yaya Jammeh. We drove back home, and I had to drop him home, and then the driver dropped me last.
Let's talk about the journey on your way back. Did you speak to any of the soldiers, including Yaya Jammeh?
Well, yes, as we were sitting together, the aftermath of all this was what we engaged in discussing, because we didn't believe it. We didn't believe that the army was cooking up a coup. And this was the center of our discussion, that we believe we have vindicated ourselves. We believe that these are consistent accusations from sister agencies, particularly the NSS, that they're always creating this false alarm against the army. This is what the discussion between me and Yaya Jammeh centered on. And I took it that he was genuine. I took it that he was real in this discussion, because we were all against what happened, in the sense that the NSS was all the time blaming the army for rumors of coups.
You talked about how you felt as a group in the car. I want to specifically focus on Yaya Jammeh himself. Do you recall exactly what he said, what his sentiments were at the time?
No. I mean, it's a long time now. I cannot understand. I cannot recall specifically what he was saying, but like I said, the discussion was on the unfair treatment of the army by these services, that this is not fair, and that whatever happened, at least that day we had vindicated ourselves, that this was false, and it was just rumors, and it was false. And I thought having done that, we have demonstrated again that that was not the case. And of course, it meant bad reputation again for the NSS.
You told us earlier about your previous interactions with Yahya Jammeh prior to that day in relation to disciplinary matters. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I mean, this was the case, and not just him, but all of them. I mean, almost Yahya Jammeh, Edward Singate, Sana Sabali. As an adjutant, this is your job, and you will have to have this encounter. It was my job to understand who misbehaved, and to take you to task for that.
So I will continue until we're told to stop. You told us a bit about your interaction with Yahya Jammeh himself prior to that. Can we take each person you've mentioned? What about Edward Singate? What was your interaction with him?
Edward, our first indiscipline encounter was when I think it was at the mess, he started, I don't know what started it, but he got into this argument of talking about that he is the most qualified army officer because he's gone to sixth form, and something like that. And to me, I mean, this was just rubbish, because I know he had gone to sixth form, but that's beside the point. I had my BA in humanities from a military academy. I know I am better trained than him, and I don't see the point. And this became personal, and I had to match him to the CEO, to the CO, the commanding officer, and then he got the reprimand for talking that indiscipline towards a superior officer.
Mr. Chairman, may we proceed, or?
Can the Secretariat confirm, is this affecting the recording? If it is, then we probably should suspend a little bit. If not, we can continue with the audio. Thank you.
Perhaps it's a convenient time to stop, considering it's 10 minutes before the break, but I am happy to proceed if you want me to.
Yeah, Council, if you just hold on a second, we'll see.
We can proceed.
Fine, let's do the 10 minutes that we have, and maybe the last 5 minutes of that, just allow commissioners, if they have any quick questions, then we would take them, then take our 30-minute break. Please continue, Council, if you have a moment. Or is that, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Witness, we'll continue with what you were telling us about your interactions with Mr. Edward Singate. What about Sana? You mentioned Sana. Who are you referring to?
Sana Sabali. I was referring to Sana Sabali. There was an issue that happened, and I took him to task for that. And I think he was assigned to do something, and he refused it. And I logged. I remembered noting that after these issues, I will have to issue a charge sheet on him.
So did you issue a charge sheet against him?
No, it didn't happen. The coup came.
And which issues were you talking about when you said you were intending to log a charge sheet with issues?
No, I think it's in discipline. It's one form. I can't remember the details any longer, but I know this happened, and I had booked in my mind that I was going to charge him. I can't remember the details, But there was something that he was supposed to do and he refused to do it.
You also mentioned Sadibu, is that correct?
No, I didn't. It's Edward, Sana, and Yaya Jammeh.
In relation to these three soldiers, how would you describe them as soldiers? You've mentioned issues of indiscipline, but how would you describe them in general as soldiers?
Well, Yaya Jammeh has never been a soldier. Yaya Jammeh cannot be described as he was not a soldier. Yaya Jammeh came from the gendarmerie. I think he lacked the training, he lacked the temperament, he lacked. He was not even trained. I mean, up to that time, Yaya Jammeh had no formal training at all, as far as I am concerned, in terms of military at all. So, I don't think it's appropriate to call him a soldier. Edward, apart from those incidences, of course, there was no other incident, but Sana Sabali is the surprise because he is generally a very quiet guy, quiet officer. So, sorry, I think the only training Yaya Jammeh had was when he went for this military police training in the U.S. But that's beside the point. My point was really that he's not what you call a core army trained officer.
So would you say that he had problems with discipline?
Yes, big time. And it's an inheritance that that was carried over to the army. He was a miscreant.
You mentioned earlier that there were planned exercises by the U.S., is that correct?
Yes, this was the case. Because when, after 21st, when we returned home, now I was trying to switch off from the parades and the ceremonies, that when I get the following day to the barracks, the first thing I'll do is to get my first briefing from the RSM, because he's the first person I'll meet. So I'll get my first briefing before the other field officers, the commanders who were really in charge of the training.
Were such exercises by the U.S. Normal? Had you had them before?
Yes, my understanding, that would have been the second time. The first time, I don't think I was in the country, probably at training or at ECOMOG. But this would have been the second time that they are coming.
And do you know what the training entailed?
Yes, it's part of military exercises and normal army training. Of course, they will direct the training because it's a core training.